This Specialized S-Works World Cup is one of the most focused and ferocious bikes I've ever tested. But does that mean it's an epic win or an epic fail?
My name's Guy Kesteven. I've been a professional bike and kit tester for over 25 years. And today I'm summing up 2 months of intensively testing the brand new Specialized S-Works Epic World Cup. Their latest top of the range race weapon. So I'm going to do a full tech talk through on the bike. Well, I'll just cover the basic numbers off first. You've got fact 12M frame, full carbon fiber on this S-Works. The Pro bike gets an 11M carbon, so this is the lightest frame you can get. Specialized is saying 1765 for a medium, including axle and all the hardware, and that translates on this S-Works bike into a 9.72 complete bike weight for the large without pedals. The really interesting thing about this bike though is the all new SID World Cup integrated design rear shock. Totally unique version of the SID Lux rear shock, and that's got a 40mm stroke. It gives 75mm of rear wheel travel. But the crucial thing is that it's got a manual rather than automatic bleed port, so you can set it up with no gulp, 0 sag, half gulp, 4% sag, or full gulp, 10% sag, depending on how sensitive you want it. But well, you've got compression and rebound adjust as well. Whoop, fluff the climbing turn. That's one downside. Have a slacker head angle. All of those adjustments are tooled, so you've got to set them before you go riding. There's no remote lever, there's no dials, no levers that you can throw. This is a proper set and forget suspension system. Oh, cheers, mate. Always good when an e-bike has to pull over, isn't it? When you're chatting. And you still get a conventional main pivot and a micro linkage to support the shock. And they haven't even amped up the anti-squat. So that unique wicked shock really is the hardcore racing heart of this thoroughbred animal. And there are some absolutely superb aspects about this bike, but in terms of the suspension, it's very much an opinion divider, and it puts this World Cup into a very specific bracket as to who it's going to suit and what sort of riding it really excels at. So as we fly around Stainburn, I'm going to sum up a couple of months of testing against everything from gravel bikes to contemporary and even not yet released 120mm XC bikes, and we'll see what those pros and cons are. I mean, let's get into the plus points. This is probably the best aggressive cross-country front end I've ever ridden. The angles, the frame stiffness, the mid-stroke on that SID SL brain fork, even the downswept bars and that fast track S-Works front tyre. This bike likes to charge into a corner like nothing else I've ridden in this weight category. And short burst technical climbing on this bike is remarkable because it is structurally stiff, and if you have it in
half or full gulp modes, then you have got a lot of small bump traction and suspension adhesion. And I'll do a full tech check on this bike, but basically the short story is, right from that super narrow Q factor XX SL power crank through to the fact you've got control spec rear tyre, all that super light Roval control SL equipment. This is pretty much the perfect cross-country race bike spec. And where this bike absolutely excels is flat out rooty charging like this. Just enough travel to skim across the top, but this is almost always near the top of that sag, and it's so stiff under power delivery. We've even got upgraded DT Swiss free hub internals, so it's a really quick, oh damn, crap line, pick up through the rear wheel. And these wheels are sub 1300 grams, front tyre 610 grams, rear 650. The acceleration is ridiculous. And while Jason from the Specialized Ride Dynamics design team assures me that the frame isn't actually significantly stiffer than the Epic or the Epic Evo, that high riding topped out shock just makes it feel incredibly precise and poised. And that minimal sag means the front end is effectively steeper and sharper most of the time until it hits something bigger, and then it slackens. So it's effectively got impact triggered geometry change as well, and that means it is such an attack bike on sections like this. It is as breathtaking as I am breathless for short bursts. Single track savagery just constantly wants you to pour more power into it. And although these level brakes are actually really good for a two-pot, it just says do not dare touch those. Get that PR, get that comm, crush everyone else. And compared to Specialized standard Epic, which you'd think was its obvious replacement, Epic World Cup definitely gets my vote. Suspension is actually more sensitive in the way it starts. There's none of that brass mass clunk that you always get even on the latest Epics. But the interesting thing about this is that Specialized say this is a hardtail killer, not a full suspension bike killer. And that's where I think things start to become unstuck. For a start, it's a lot heavier than a hardtail, and it's like double the frame weight of something like a new Scott Scale or Canyon Exceed CFR, and it's 900 grams heavier than Specialized's own Epic hardtail, which, you know, barring relatively old school geometry, is still a current and competitive bike. And I haven't ridden this bike against my own Specialized Chisel Project build, which incidentally is actually 650 grams lighter, even though it's got an alloy frame. And complete bikes start at £2 grand not 8.5 grand. It's also, in many ways, smoother through the contact points and definitely more comfortable. And also, while, you know, sub 10 kilos, 9.72 kilos as it comes with the rigid seat post, is phenomenally light. It's actually not crazy light compared to a full suspension bike. Specialized own Epic Evo 115, 110 mil rear travel mind out cartridge is actually 100 grams lighter than the frames in the frame set. My Cervelo ZFS long termer is within a couple of 100 grams. Scott Spark, similar frame weight to this, and those are, you know, we're talking 120 mil travel bikes there, and riding those head to head, not quite as aggressive in the way they attack stuff, but so much more forgiving, so much easier to carry speed on over janky stuff like this, or just on longer days. It's hard to kind of explain why, but the fact you're constantly sort of banging against that hydraulic top out, it's not a harsh clank or anything like that. It's just transmitting a lot more shock through to you, through the bars, the frame, and that just gets tiring really quickly. So while I can see why Laura Stiger, Specialized rider, has been smashing short tracks up this year on this bike, you know, 20-minute flat out, a few big obstacles where that suspension can save you time. But while Laura's won 2 XCC races already this year, and might well win some more, nearly all the rest of the Specialized riders, including Chris Blevins, who's kind of the star of their launch video and their setup videos, they've all been riding Epic Evo with a remote lockout. And you've got to remember that 9.7 kilo weight without pedals for this large is with an extremely light rigid seat post. Even with a really light dropper in, it's going to be over 10 kilos, and with, you know, if you went collar and cuffs, the went for reverb axis dropper, which is what I've got in now, it's a 10.4 kilo bike. And even things like that SID brain fork, I have to say, I think it works brilliantly. It's the new chassis, new machine crown, saves weight, and certainly seems pretty stiff, and it's 110 mil travel, which is 10 mil more than the current SL fork. And I think the brain damper is brilliant. Taking the spike valve out of it now, and the control of singular drops and through turns is awesome. Really does make this bike a phenomenal short track attack bike. But that brain damper adds 200 grams over the standard SL fork, and while the fact it still moves 15 mil even in the firmest brain fade setting is awesome for traction, it means there's still some, come on, movement under power. And it's the same with the back end because of that neutral kinematic, even in, well, the stiffest modes. You can feel the back end moving, and it's fractional, and I'm sure it makes bugger all difference in terms of actual pedaling efficiency. But in your head, in a race head at least, the fact it still bounces and bobs, especially on smoother sections, is a real morale slapper. Especially when you've been told the bike's gonna pedal like a hardtail. So while structurally I think that's right, emotionally it's not. And if you do put it in zero gulp, the hardest setting, to get that maximum hardtail vibe, the kickback and battering you get is appalling, frankly. It's horrible. And it also really affects traction, because the back wheel's just getting kicked off the ground all the time before the suspension really has chance to move. So across something like this, I mean, you can hear I've gone staccato. Sounds like my signal's breaking up, but that's just me being bounced around, even in half gulp. And I know for a fact, compared to a 120, even a 100mm conventional bike, I'd have gone across there a lot easier. And the other thing is, pretty much every full suspension cross-country bike comes with a lockout that you can control. So you can have it fully hardtail, the press of a button, push of a lever. Whereas you cannot do that with this. It is set and forget, which will appeal to some people, but again, when you look at the backdrop of what's happening with other tech in this area, like Nino now running RockShox Flight Attendant, Pidcock already winning Olympics and World Cups on Sunto's electric suspension control system. Fox have had live valve out for a long time. Having this zero sag proprietary shock and doesn't half seem primitive. And I mean, it should be more reliable because it is a very simple system, and the fact you've got a tiny little stiffening swing link in the frame, it's not just a slider stanchion like the Trek Super Caliber, should make the shock a lot more durable. And it's operating under a very low leverage ratio, 1.88 to 1, so there's a very low load on the shock as well. That should all make it very reliable. Oh, and there's a big bushing halfway along the shaft to add stiffness and longevity too. So, you know, it's a plus from those points of view, but it's 30 grams heavier than the standard SID Lux shock for a lot less travel. And I can't even tell you about the latest RockShox tech I'm riding at the moment. That'll make it seem even more curious to be doing things this way. There's no denying it does have remarkable punch up short techie climb sections like this, but even so, you can hear that back wheel skipping and scuffing there. And while reach is decent, over 460mm, on this large. So again, that helps with the control of the front end, and even that minus 12 degree equivalent all-in-one stem helps keep the front wheel down on super steep techie climbs like that. Well, it's listed as a 70.4.5 degree seat angle because of the way seat tube's offset. At my satellite, it's actually a relatively slack 73.5, so still have to keep sliding forwards on the nose on really steep stuff. I mean, even now, coming up this fire road, I can feel it pulsing underneath me as the power goes down. And like I say, it's psychosomatic. I'm sure there's no physical loss, but in my head, that's not what I'm wanting. So I think, I have to say, I'm definitely still, when it comes to epics, I'm still team epic Evo. Just like Mr. Blevins and most of the rest of the Specialized team. Because as impressive as this bike is, down techie stuff, and it really has surprised everyone who's ridden it in that respect. The longer these descents go on, the harder it gets to hold up against that increased battering you get from the suspension. And also, you're only going to be able to ride it properly fast on techie descents, well, unless you're some kind of high post XC god, unless you put a dropper in. So I guess to be fair, I can see why they stuck with a rigid post, because it does really define who this bike is suitable for. It is for someone who looks at that rigid post and goes, yeah, can't see a problem in that.
So there we go. That's 2 months of some of the most interesting and intensive testing I've ever done on a bike, and I'm still not sure. I mean, I asked the question at the start, is it an epic fail or an epic win? And in terms of weight, in terms of suspension travel, in terms of, you know, the way suspension lockout and things are going, it's very, very focused, sort of short track only. But then if you're racing short track, you have to race the same bike for the long track, which it won't suit as much. You could definitely say, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to say why on earth has Specialized done this. I don't think it's a hardtail killer. I think hardtails definitely still have a place. And, you know, I've recorded a bunch of videos where I've been, yeah, no, don't really get it. But, so that's kind of the head side of it. But the heart side of it, especially when your heart is like doing 180, 190 beats, you're absolutely flat out. This bike is incredible. I mean, the fact I've got more comms and PRs on it than any other bike I can remember recently, I mean, that's always hard because, you know, I haven't had a bike this light. I've got one now. I've just built that Cervelo up, so that might go out and retake all those. But the fact, just the sheer fact that this bike puts you in that frame of mind to go out and hunt and hurt yourself and hurt everyone else, and it's so focused on that, and it delivers on that so well, brutally well. I mean, this is proper take no prisoners race bike, this. And I've got to respect that, and I actually love it for that. You know, the detail and the amount of work that Specialized have put into this, and the fact they've done it in a really interesting way. That is an epic win. So I guess you've seen the footage, you know about the bike, watch the tech check round as well, where I'll go into more detail on all the different features on it. And I guess you just got to make your own mind up on this one, but I've bloody loved having it on deck for the past 2 months. It has been great fun. Even on the days it's been definitely very much Type 2 fun. So massive thanks to Specialized UK for sending the bike in for test, to Giro Cycling, PE's products, Enduro Bearings, Torque Nutrition, Crud XL fenders, and Hebtro Co for sponsoring the channel long term. Massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers who have a whole bunch of sequence videos on this, sort of documenting the testing process, which if you've enjoyed this and you want to dig deeper into that, then, you know, head over to my Patreon channel. It's a tiny subscription, but it makes a big difference the more people I get on there. So that's all on there, and they also get exclusive and ad-free edits as a perk for supporting me on a monthly basis. So if you really like what I'm doing and you want to support the channel, please consider joining me on Patreon. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, click for notifications so you know when the next video comes out, including that tech talk round. Give it a thumbs up like if you've made it this far, and just tell your mates about the channel as well. That makes a massive difference. And otherwise, just, you know, get busy in the comments. I'm equally interested. Well, I'm interested in whether Specialized get a win in long track on this, or whether Chris Blevins ever does ride it this year. I'm interested in what you think of the bike as well. And I'm interested to see, you know, how it sells and how many people literally buy into this epic World Cup, because it is. It's a hell of a divider, that's for sure. But for now, I've been Guy Kestervin on Guy Kes TV, going flat out on one of the fastest bikes I've ever ridden. The Specialized S-Works Epic World Cup.